Don't forget to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Turn on that notification bell so you know when videos drop. Thanks for watching.
The following video was filmed at Iowa State University's College of Veterinary Medicine in Ames, Iowa on October 7th, 2022. This presentation was geared toward first, second, and third year veterinarian students learning all about peacocks and peafowl. I want to thank the College of Veterinary Medicine along with the Avian Club for inviting me to speak. I also want to thank Peyton, Michelle, Ashley, and Chloe for making me feel welcome. Here's the video.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So if everyone's got their food and ready, I'm going to quick introduce Dr.
Well, thank you. I'll take an honorary doctor.
Honorary doctor. Mr. Dennis Vett here. He has a really interesting way that he got to the peacock world, so I'm going to share just a little bit of that journey. So he is from Paterson, New Jersey, and went to East Side High School, made famous by the movie Lean on Me High School, if anyone knows that. He studied clarinet at Juilliard School of Music during high school and during college. He then played professional music in New York City and New Jersey metropolitan area during high school and college. Earned a Bachelor of Music degree from Yankton College Conservatory of Music, Yankton, South Dakota. Then married Deborah Joan Buck, a.k.a. Mrs. Peacock, in 1980 for 42 years. He is the author of The Wacky World of Peafowl, Volume 1 in 1986, and The Wacky World of Peafowl, Volume 2 in 1990. He wrote and sang the song The Wacky Peacock, where he made his national TV debut on the Lifetime Channel talk show in NYC called Attitudes in 1990. He published the first and only Peacock newsletter in 1990 for the following 22 years. Peacock Consultants in Rolling Hills Estates, California in 1992, and Peacock Consultant for Miami, Florida, Wild Peacock Problem, and several other places around the U.S. and overseas, such as the U.K., Australia, and Canada. He has the first webpage on Peacock's Peafowl called peafowl.com in 1996, which I also sent a link to all of you, so you can feel free to go explore that page. He has a fellowship in the 90s from Creighton University Biology Department to study mating behaviors of peacock and peahens, the first and only peacock YouTuber in 2007, with 350 plus peacock peafowl videos. He's also been on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno December 19, 2008, in a segment called Does This Impress Ed Asner, played Jingle Bells on his disappearing clarinet. He created a video series on YouTube called Peacock Minute, and Travel the USA with Mr. and Mrs. Peacock, and Storytime with Mr. and Mrs. Peacock. He also started a program called Save the Peacock to rehome wild peacocks from around the USA to farms wanting them. He is now a retired music teacher of 42 years and a full-time filmmaker for a YouTube channel and a peacock farmer. So if we can give a hand to Mr. Peacock here for our presentation.
So thank you, Peyton, and thank you, College of Veterinary Medicine, along with the Avian Club, for inviting me back for my second time. Last time was 4 years ago, and I am so honored to be here and to speak about peacocks. That's been my passion for 42 years. I have no formalized training in poultry science, but 42 years of experience in this wacky world of peafowl. And I'm just so happy to see so many of you turn out today. And if you have to leave, I won't be offended. I used to teach elementary music before I retired 6 years ago, and I'm used to 5-year-olds getting up and going what they need to do, so feel free. I believe that it will be on Echo 360, is that what it's called? So you can actually watch if you miss it, and if you do leave early, if you have any questions for me, you have that pamphlet that you can contact me if you, I don't know where you are in your pathway to your final career in veterinary medicine, but feel free to contact me. Be sure to tell me you are from Iowa State. I will give you first priority and give up all my time for you because I have kind of a close connection. Well, this is very big. This is Peafowl Peacocks 101, and it's kind of an interesting topic. Each one of these could take an hour in themselves, so I'm going to go really fast, and I'll hopefully not talk too fast. We're going to talk about biological classifications, housing, feed, eggs, pea chicks, feather production, medication, peafowl behavior, territorial peafowl, breeding, DNA testing, environmental factors, and fun stories. And we're going to save time for some questions. I'm always asked how I got started into this wacky world of peafowl. It's not my fault. I'm a city boy. I never had a pet in my entire life until I met my lovely wife, Deborah. And that's with one of our baby pea chicks for about a year or so ago. I met her when I was teaching her younger sister, a tuba player, and we met and we dated and we got married, and I gave her an engagement pet pig, and his name was Charlie. Everybody says, is that all you gave her as an engagement gift? I gave her a ring. That was the first thing. She loved pigs, and you can see the pictures here that I took of her and baby Charlie. And Charlie grew up to be 800 pounds. He loved her, he hated me. And unfortunately, Charlie passed away on a hot, sultry night. We think it was a thunderstorm. My wife was really upset, and I asked her, what do you want next? And she said, peacocks. I'm so happy she didn't say elephants, because I'd probably get obsessed by elephants instead of peacocks. They're a lot easier. I went out and found 3 hatching eggs, and I hatched them out, and here are the photographs that I took of my wife sitting with Junior, the pet peacock, and Junior hanging out in the basement on a cold night. And then, unfortunately, Junior passed away. This is not good. The pig dies, peacock dies, and Don Hansen, our veterinarian, did the postmortem, and I never seen a post in my entire life. Didn't know anything about that. And he said, you sure you want to see it? I said, yep, I want to see it. We did the post, and it turned out that Junior had a bad heart. It was malformed. He said, you're lucky it lived as long as it did. I had no idea what that meant. Now I sort of do. And then he says, I got bad news for you. He says, Junior's not a boy. Junior's a girl. So that's how I got into this wacky world of peafowl. Being an educator, I wanted to know everything I could about peacocks. There were no books around. There was one book in the UK before I published my first book, but I wrote every bit of information down on paper, longhand before computers. My quest went on. I had to learn about the different biological classifications of peafowl. It's broken down. They're Galliformes, and there's 125 Galliformes, and peafowl belong to that order. And then the next order is Phasianidae, and that's where they belong to, and then pheasants and quail. Peafowl are a pheasant. They are the largest member of the pheasant family. When I think of pheasants, I think of ringneck pheasants and seeing the beautiful birds in the countryside, but they are a pheasant. See, there's 183 species and 48 genres, and peafowl belong to this group. There are only 2 types of peafowl. We have the blue wild type, and we have the green. Some people like to call the Congo peacock peafowl, but it isn't really peafowl. You can see the biological names there, not even close. There are 7 stabilized mutations of peafowl. They are as follows. The India blue. This is what everybody see in the zoo and everybody loves. We have the black shoulder. And in this one, you can see that the shoulder up here is dark in color. It's black, greenish color. It's very stunning. And the feathers are the same as an India blue. If a black shoulder was displaying here and a blue is displaying here straight on, I could not tell you if it was a blue or a black shoulder unless I saw the side on his shoulder, hence the name black shoulder. The white peacock is so stunning, and the most important thing about it, does not have red eyes, and it's not an albino. It's as if the peacock was stripped of all colors, and you can see that the feathers has the markings of the typical India blue, but it has no color pigmentation on it. This is the most fascinating one. This was new about in the 90s, the cameo. You see it's chocolate colored. There's a cameo feather in the feather pack that I'm passing around. And it has striping, as we call barring here. It's similar to the blue, where the blue has striping. That's because it was used in crossbreeding. I'm not an expert in recessive and all that part after all these years. I just say the bird carries this gene and that gene, to make it simple, since most of my people are not into that, unless they're experts in that area. And this bird happens to be a recessive bird. This is Oten, and he is related to the cameo. This bird I created out of the crossings of my cameo peafowl. For some reason, an odd bird came out of it. I took a female and I crossed it back to the male, and 10 years later, I had a male and female of this. And later I'll talk about genetics. Pied. This is fascinating. This is an India blue. You can see by its barring right over here, but it's like someone took a handful of white paint and threw it at the bird, and every pied peacock, male or female, never looks the same. My wife's been wanting one for 42 years, and maybe one day we'll get one. We might have one that might have just hatched out by surprise. We'll see in about 6 months. Spalding. This happens to be a pied spalding. I didn't have a regular spalding. It's a cross between black shoulder peacock and a green peacock. You'll notice that the crown feathers go straight up in the air, as opposed to the India blue and all the other color types, the non-green, they fan out. It's very fascinating, and this happens to be a pied spalding. And by the way, he can't handle the cold temperatures of Iowa. It has to have heat, because since it has about 50% of the bloodline of the green, and greens are very susceptible to cold weather. Speaking about greens, there are 3 green types, and you can see the biological names. Muticus muticus is the one that we have in the United States, and that bloodline is very polluted. The problem with the greens is people have been kind of crossbreeding them and playing it, and some people claim they're using it for making different mutations in India blues, and they're not doing the research right. And they don't like me too well, because a lot of times I dispel this and they come out as mules. If they create new, you have to do it correctly, and I'll tell you a little bit about the genetics more later on. The Indo and the Burmese ones, I think, are endangered, and since I was here last, I made an acquaintance with people in Thailand. We've had a hard time communicating. They provided me with videos. They have an eco-tourism set up with the wild green peafowl, and obviously COVID hit, and I don't know where that's at, and I haven't heard back from them. They're very fascinating in the wild there. And speaking of it, this is one of those birds in the wild. You can see the difference in the color. It's emerald green in the neck area, and then around I'm sure there's a technical name for it, forgive me. I've never studied it. It's not really important for my knowledge, but you can see beautiful yellow markings on it. Again, the crown feathers go straight up, and the back tail feathers are exactly the same as an India blue, and it's really stunning. One thing about them, they're kind of mean. My first experience with Muticus muticus was up in Charter Oak, Iowa. The guy who taught me everything I knew about peacocks, he had one pen, and he just got it, and another blue in another pen, and I saw that green peacock go into that pen and hurt that other peacock, and it needed medical help. They're really mean. My friend in Thailand says they're not mean in the wild, because I don't think they get too close to them. You'd have to have at least heated place above 32 degrees, or they won't survive in Iowa. Housing is so important. This is where we keep some of our birds. I like to have equal housing for the birds, like 12 by 16 by 8. 8 because peacocks, when they display their feathers, they come up as tall as my head. You can hide behind one. So therefore, if they go up on a roost, you need to have it so that the tail feathers don't hit the ground. The more space, the better. Peacocks can be turned loose after 1 year of captivity. People want to turn them loose right away, and I get so many calls for my peacock sounds tape to get them back, because they turn them loose and expect them to come back like chickens, and they say, bye peacock, and they're gone. They need to be kept in captivity for the first year, and then when you turn them loose, you train them like we do with mealworms, and you spend a lot of time, otherwise they might run away. Feed. This is like the most important thing in my life with my birds. Feed requirements for peafowl are much different than other poultry. They require 50% more protein than other poultry. Peafowl are not sexually mature until the age of 3. Other poultry usually are sexually mature and lay eggs age 1. I have ducks and geese that I hatched out in April and May, and they're already laying eggs already. My pea chicks that are hatched out at the same time won't be doing that for about 2 years. We have peacocks running around our farm for our pleasure, and they feed mostly on bugs, greens, and seeds all during spring, summer, and fall. And they have feed for them available in the barn whenever they choose to go in the barn. And they go to bed every night. They enjoy getting the mealworms when my wife goes in there, and I close up the pens, and they follow her like a puppy dog. And we got them trained, unless there's other factors. A farmer comes by and scares them with a tractor. A crop duster, as I call, comes bombing down, and they fly all over the place. Anything that's out of the ordinary changes their behavior, but mostly they do pretty well outside, and they choose to stay outside most of the time, but they go to bed every night in our barn. Our cage birds get a mixture of 50% cracked corn, 50% game bird food that has 27% protein. And I also add oats and wheat to this mixture. And during laying season, I get this product called Omega Egg Layer Supplement, and it helps me with egg production. This is very important. I started using last season a water-soluble vitamin, electrolyte, and probiotics in their waters during the month of April through August when they lay. And sporadically, I'll use it like now in the next couple weeks with the temperatures going near freezing. Anytime there's snow or changes in weather, I supplement the water-soluble vitamins, electrolytes, and probiotics. If you let them run on your land, be prepared. They love vegetation. They love my tomato plants. They love my wife's flowers. So we have to make sure we put up one of those little tiny fences with those little rods, and they stay out. They usually don't cause any problems. And this last year, about a year ago, we discovered that bird food does not have the necessary nutrition for a complete game bird food. Even if it's 28% or 30%, some of the companies are just not making it work very well. We moved to a new company. It's a 27%. It went down 1% in protein. It's non-medicated by Hubbard feeds. And we saw the birds eating less feed this year, better feather production. And of course, the egg production was off the charts this year. I was totally surprised to see that happen. Game bird food, for some reason or another, has changed through the years, and I think it's because most of the corn is bred for ethanol and has more starch in it. Therefore, the old-fashioned corn was better for the nutritional values, and the feed companies tell me that what happens is they test for nutrition of the corn. If there's not enough, they add it. I don't like that. I would rather have the bare corn as it is, the best possible corn, and let the birds get the nutrition that way. It's the best way. I would like to see 30% protein, but it's really cost prohibitive. I think only one company has that, and I think it's Purina, and then they're very expensive. I've never used their food. I go through 25 bags every 6 months, but with my new mixture, I added wheat and oat this last year. I usually get cracked corn, 72 bushels in July. I haven't even had to get the cracked corn yet. I will get it in about another month. My birds have eaten less. They're healthier than they've ever been. I'm totally shocked. And I thought I knew something about peafowl. I learned something brand new this year. Mealworms are the greatest treat. We use dried mealworms. They're very expensive. My friend said to me on the phone the other day, why don't you grow them? I said, I don't have time. They'd probably be cheaper, but they love the mealworms. And of course, cat food. They just see my wife coming, and she's like the Pied Piper of peacocks. Egg production, that's most important for me. Most people do not realize that peahens do not lay eggs until their second year of life. We only saw 2-year-old peahens lay eggs in their first year, and unfortunately, those eggs were infertile. Peahens lay during the months of April through August, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. So if you were on my farm, you see me with a flashlight at 10 o'clock, walking to the barn, picking up the peahen eggs and getting them ready for the incubator or to be shipped out to the people who get them from us. They average 20 eggs per bird, and we've seen as high as 30 eggs per bird this year and last year. It's amazing. That new feed mixture made all the difference in the world, and the vitamins and electrolyte. That's something to think about. If you're ever in a practice and you have someone that comes into you, even though you may have some other critter that you're taking care of, keep that in the back of your mind, because that will help keep those birds do well. Egg production declines at about age 12, and if eggs are not collected on a nightly basis like we do, the peahen will lay 3 to 8 eggs per nest and incubate them for 28 days. As I said before, you need to have an excellent source of game bird food, which is 27 to 30% protein. If you provide anything less, the birds will cease to exist. I know that to be a fact. In the last 5 years, it just doesn't work. You have to really test it and be very careful. It doesn't matter whether it's a peacock, if it's a chicken, if they're not doing well and they're dying, check with the feed first. Try different feed and get vitamins, electrolytes. We had 2 white peacocks, but they were doing poorly. My wife got vitamins, electrolytes. We put it in the water, and within 2 days, went very well and came back to life, and now is in the main peacock pen. I don't even know which it is. I'd have to go look at the bands. It's amazing. I've seen miracles happen this last year. You have to be careful that there are no medications. A lot of the game bird foods put medications in. One is for coccidia. I prefer no medication whatsoever. If you need medication, use it when it's necessary. If you've got a client who has coccidia, then you would prescribe the necessary medication that would be perfect for coccidia. I noticed with using this Hubbard game bird food, we discovered that they're doing well and there's no medication in it. So that may be a factor for them doing better. Prior to that, we had that coccidia medicine in there, and my wife didn't like it, and we finally got Hubbard's food. This was our most successful year in 42 years. I've never seen anything like this. It was amazing. After 6 months, we gradually, with some wheat and oat and cracked corn, to get them ready to be put in the regular pen and the new housing. It should be noted that pea chicks grow way slower than other birds. Since they take 2 to 3 years to be sexually mature, that's why they grow slower. Feather production. I love the feathers. As you saw, it's the greatest time of the year to collect them in July, and then it's sad to see the peacock without their feathers. I noticed that some of them are starting to grow their feathers back. A male peacock is not sexually matured until his 3rd year of life. You can tell the age of a male peacock by its feathers. This is a 1-year-old peacock. He has no feathers whatsoever. This is a 2-year-old peacock, and he has about 12, 15 eye feathers, but not much more than that. That's what he would look like at age 2. And of course, this is a 3-year-old peacock. He has a full train of peacock feathers. I can't tell the difference between a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old based on feathers at this point. Unless I banded the bird and hatched it out and have that, then I know that this bird is X amount of years old. A peacock will lose their feathers in July and August. Like I said, it's kind of the sad time of the year, but it's happy. Then we can collect it and give them as gifts, sell them for wedding presents and fishing lures and cat toys and toys to put them on the palm of your hand for your children to play with them. If you have kids or have nephews and nieces and relatives, it's a good toy. A diversion. They start growing them back in October, and some of them are growing them back right now. Feather production is determined by the time of spring or summer when the bird is hatched. Later hatched peacocks produce feathers later on. Also, a peacock hatched out early in the year will drop its feathers earlier, and one that's hatched out later in the year will drop his feathers later in the summer. So we have earlier hatched birds and late hatched birds, so then my season is expanded, so I have more feathers for my enjoyment. I'm just really selfish. I want to see the beautiful birds display when I'm sitting out on my lawn chair. A well-balanced diet of good nutrition will keep peacock healthy. It's obvious. You guys study that, you know that for a fact. Our second book has the most extensive medication chapter published ever on treating peafowl, and I wrote it along with our veterinarian, who's a graduate of your university, and his name is Don Hansen, and he started the Shelby Veterinary Clinic in Shelby, Iowa, and he's quite a guy. He's retired now. He used standard stuff, and he came up with different things. He used Panalog in the eye, see bulging eyes or any eye disease. He just took the bird and put drops in it, and it went away several days. I called him on an emergency once and said, my peacocks are losing all kinds of blood out of their feathers. This was like in the spring. He says, do you have any flour? I said, yeah. He says, put flour on it. That'll stop the bleeding. And that's a simple trick. So if you're in practice and someone's bird, it doesn't matter what kind of poultry it is, the flour will work great. Blackhead disease is a major problem with turkeys and peafowl. We don't have it anymore. I haven't seen it for years on our farm, maybe 35 years ago, the last time I saw it. We've never seen it again. I was given permission to reprint in my second peafowl book, The Wacky World of Peafowl, Volume 2, Blackhead and Turkeys and Chicken by Everett E. Lund. It was from 1956 from the Department of Agriculture printing office. It was out of print. They gave me permission to reprint it. I hope that somebody, and maybe one of you, might want to look into this thing called colloidal silver and what it might be able to do. It's water soluble. It's a great thing from what I hear. And I've been told that it's got some merits to it that might do something to help birds. So that's something that you might want to research on your own. Behavior. I sometimes think I'm training my peacocks. I think they train me with mealworms and putting them to bed at night. If you would follow me around with a drone camera, you'd kind of laugh every night, the same routine, unless they decide we're going to do something different. And they're very trainable. I trained a peacock to jump on my arm on command. I also have a trained peacock now called Buddy the Peacock. This is a still shot from my video. That's on YouTube. And you have that, Peyton gave you, link to this and see this video. And their behavior is very predictable, whether they're in captivity or running wild. We had a lot of problems with crop dusters and helicopters, and anytime a plane comes over, they go crazy. It's been ongoing on our farm, and it's really a bad situation. So we have to always be careful, especially when I'm in the pen. I get my head knocked off by a peacock flying. They're 15 pounds. They can cause damage to you. And yes. The only way to desensitize them is basically they got to get used to it. But unfortunately, with all the crop dusters on our property this last 5 years, and there are like 5, 6 of them, sometimes 1 or 2 a day by it, they still don't get used to it because they're flying at low altitude. And I think it's the sound that bothers them. They have very sensitive ears. I never thought of that until this moment. That's something brand new. Thank you. That was fantastic. And here's Buddy the peacock on the right. He likes to be pet, and he's 15 pounds. He doesn't jump on my arm. We're friends. And then there's my wife, Mrs. Peacock, Deb, and one of our pet white peacocks. And he used to, I have a picture, I think, in my book where he used to fly on my shoulder. He just loved being on me. But then he got older, and of course, here's one of my babies that I was going to put him in his new housing arrangement. Territorial peafowl. You can see the peacock ballet in the photographs. Male peacocks are very territorial from 3 years on. They tolerate 1-year-old and 2-year-old peacocks, but once a peacock becomes 3 years old with a full tail feather, they become very territorial and they fight for that coveted space on my property. Males will fight with one another, as you see up on the photograph. During this hottest part of the summer, I've never had one get hurt where they needed medical attention by either myself or my veterinarian. They puff and their jaws are going, they're just, you can see that they're hot, and sometimes I just have to walk the one that's outside fighting with the one inside the pen and walk them into the barn. And once you get them distracted from whatever's going on, usually it's near the end of the night. Peacocks have been known to attack cars and shiny windows, but no issues with people. However, there's been isolated reports, and you may have seen some of them, of peacocks attacking people, but we've never seen that. I've never been attacked by a peacock. If one attacked me, it would be held for about 20, 30 minutes, and that would be the last time it would attack me. I'd be giving it goodies and making some behavior modifications. What happens is a lot of people say they're attacking me, and they trained their peacock when they were little, and they're cute, and they're flying on your shoulder, and they ignore the bird. And the bird just wants attention, and they think they're attacking it. If they just would give it some goodies and some treats, it would be just fine. So that's something to keep in mind. One mating will last approximately 14 days. Peafowl are the only bird that I'm aware of that it takes 3 years to be sexually mature. I don't know of any other bird. If you know one, email me sometime and tell me. I'd like to change that, but I don't know of any. I have created new bloodlines and crossbred many of the peafowl, like I told you a bit ago with the Oten. And I learned everything from a great professor here from your university. His name was Dr. Willard Hollander in the genetic department, a fantastic guy. If you want to learn about genetics, read his material. I'm sure you can find it here at the university. You're so lucky to have him here. And he taught me everything I knew about peacocks. He wrote the genetic chapter in my first book about genetics on peafowl. When he gave me the paper, it was just 1 page. I said, Dr. Hollander, how come it's just 1 page? And he looked at me very seriously, and he was a great, great professor. I wish you had him. He said, there's not more to say. It's very simple. And he was right. When you read it, it's very simple, and I use those. And the guys and gals who today are not following that procedure are getting mules and peacocks and peahens that are genetically messed up and having problems. And if you follow his procedure, one of the guys who was trying to make a different color type would never listen to Dr. Hollander. He always would tell me, I don't understand this guy. I said, well, some people are stubborn. Being a school teacher, I understand. You can teach a class something, but if they're not going to learn, that's the best you can do. I used to have people say, how can I tell the sex of my white peacock? I said, well, I can't tell the sex of my white peacock until it's about a year to a year and a half old, just because. You have to look at the legs, you have to look at the feather structure once it gets to its second year of life. Some people have the old-fashioned method where they check the bird manually, and they do that today. But we learned about 5 years ago that they have this new procedure, DNA testing pea chicks or any poultry or any cage bird. If you get into the cage bird world, you can have that bird tested for $20. And that picture up there is an actual photograph of a baby pea chick bird sexing solution, and you have that on your link that I gave to you if you want to check them out. That's an actual what they show. I was disappointed. I said, can I check if this peacock's related to that peacock to that peacock? She says, well, how much money do you have? It's possible. I'm so excited about that, but I can tell usually in a blue, black shoulder, cameo, and Oten what they're going to be within 5 or 6 months. I kind of like to be surprised. And just like I said, I got one that I don't even know what it's going to be. It's supposed to be black shoulder. It never was supposed to be a black shoulder. So I'll find out, and maybe if I come back again in spring or next year or whatever, we'll find out. I may just be surprised. It may just have an odd feather here or there. Environmental factors. Farm pesticides drifting off target on our land has caused major issues over the years regarding sex reversal of some of our peahens. Our video and website has brought a lot of attention to this situation. And every time someone calls me and says, I have a bird that's a female that just changed and she's got peacock feathers. And I always ask them the question, did you have any herbicide, fungicides, or insecticides sprayed on your property? And every one of the people who called me for the last 20 years said yes. My website has brought a lot of attention after a crop duster flew over. Over on the side there is a actual India blue peacock and one of my peahens. My egg production dropped by about 20 eggs. She stopped laying eggs. You can see this is about in spring, late spring, after she molted the previous fall. And then eventually, they only live about a year or two afterwards. My website has postmortems from Dr. Tremble. He's from this university. So Dr. Tremble did a postmortem, and that's on this website. You have that link, the he, she, and then he, she, one has the pictures of the postmortem and has everything he said. South Dakota State University up in Brookings did one, and the South Dakota State University one did their postmortem, and that's also there for your perusal on that website. And I have 2 YouTube videos showing similar photographs to the he, she, peacock. If this is of interest to you. Now to the fun stories. You heard that I got the opportunity to be on Tonight Show, and there's good old Jay Leno. That was in 2008. And I was so disappointed because during rehearsal, they were talking about peacocks. He wanted to ask about where Minden, Iowa was and how many people lived in that town. And I only got to see Jay approximately 1 minute and 48 seconds on the show. I didn't see him before because at that time he was being fired and they didn't know if he was going to have his job. I think Conan O'Brien took over his position with NBC's Tonight Show, and then eventually Jimmy Fallon took it over after Conan went over to TBS or something like that. Jay didn't come down. He was distraught. My producer said, he's up there. He's watching you while you do the rehearsal. And then at the end of the show, they ushered us out on stage, and he did his picture, and there you see it. It was a dream come true. Keep this in mind. I was a 10-year-old kid playing clarinet. Oh, that was my disciplinary clarinet act. I played Jingle Bells, 28 seconds, started with my whole clarinet and ended up with my mouth in 28 seconds. And Ed Asner, if you ever heard of him, he's a long time ago. Most people don't even remember him, but he had decided, well, this impressed Ed Asner. I got 2 thumbs up. And my wife was so mad. She said, how come you didn't talk about peacocks? I said, I did talk about peacocks when I was on stage. They cut it out. I went over that video over and over again. They are the best editors. I can't even see where they edited it out. That was kind of disappointing, but at least he didn't cut me out completely. Any of you ever hear of Charles Kuralt from CBS Sunday Morning? Way back, long time ago. He used to do that Sunday morning on the road. He came around. He heard about us. Our Peacock books were very popular around the world before the internet. He sent his crew out for 3 days, and in 3 days they came out and filmed. And I went to do a TV show back on the East Coast, called him up and told him, and he, oh, it's good to see you. I'm going to be coming out to see you soon. He said, probably in about 3 months. Unfortunately, he passed away. My story never got aired, but I have a picture of Charles and I. Ever hear of Hugh Hefner? I did a story in our Peafowl Report newsletter of people who had peacocks. I thought I'd never get any information from these people. I wrote in the story, he has the biggest menagerie I've ever seen in my entire life. He had peacocks on there, and he was having peacock problems. I wrote the newsletter story, and it was really a good story. And my first paragraph was, if Hugh Hefner depended on people like my wife and I, he would have gone out of business long ago. About a month after the story came out, his personal assistant called me and said, I want more copies. I loved your story. I go, phew, I'm so lucky. He loved the story. He said, and his assistant said, when you're in Hollywood the next time, I invite you to the Playboy Mansion. Okay. You know, I'm a 35-year-old guy, Playboy Mansion. Who gets invited to that place? I did this TV show, You Lie Like a Dog. I'll tell you more about it in a second. After I filmed this show, I went to Hugh Hefner's place. I was there, supposed to be there for a half hour, ended up being there for 4 hours. And he says, well, his trainer says, well, we got a photo shoot here by the pool, you know, the infamous pool. The peacocks keep defecating there. What can we do? I said, well, I got a solution. I told him, put up some fishing line and did this and that. And all during my tour of his menagerie, there was this guy, real handsome young man, Armani suit, dressed to, oh man, I've never seen a suit look so good in my life. Following me, way behind me. And finally, we went to have some beverages. When we were done, he takes his coat off. He's got a gun and all kinds of gear. He was his personal security guard assigned to follow me around the place. He's the nicest guy. They were nice people. The only bunnies I saw that day were four-legged bunnies, no two-legged bunnies, and just peacocks. You lie like a dog. That's where I went to Hollywood, and I was the peacock expert. The guy on the left there was the guy who was, they were going to decide who was the real peacock expert, and that was a trained peacock from Hollywood. This is a gal called Doris Roberts. I don't know if you ever heard of her. Victoria Jackson and Kevin Neely. And they were the three celebrities who had to decide who the expert was. Well, I couldn't tell a lie, but he could lie all his way. This guy was good. He had an English accent. He was just really fantastic. This is the one that I really loved the best. I wrote a peacock song. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard a song in my head, being a music person. I asked my wife the next day, can you put words to it? And she said, yeah. We went and did this wonderful talk show back when the Lifetime channel started in May of 1990. Nobody even knew who the Lifetime channel was. The host was Linda Dano. If you're a soap opera aficionado from the past, she was on that show. We sang the Peacock song. They hired a piano player for us, and we sang it on there. The first segment was on the stage, and you can see the Attitudes Peafowl Motel. There's my wife, Deb, sitting there. And that crate there is very interesting. We transported a fully feathered peacock in this crate on the airplane from Omaha Eppley Airfield to LaGuardia Airport, and was put in this cage along with 3 peahens, and it made it to the airport perfectly. We did our show, and that little Peafowl Motel was on a roller, and they rolled it onto the set, like over here. And that's one of the stage crew hanging out, looking at the birds and talking to them. And when it was all said and done, we were ushered out of the place. The Wacky World of Peafowl, our books are available on our website. They're download, iTunes, or PDF form, non-printable on my website. Final quick story. This is a true story. I wrote this. The white peacock that ran away from the circus. Circus act came through with a 7-peacock act, and the white one was the star of the show. The little ringmaster's son did something silly. The bird is trainable and has been doing it for years. The bird got lost. The circus left town and left the peacock there. The guy was distraught. He says, I want to buy a peacock. You have lots of peacocks. You're famous. I don't have one for sale. You've got it. He hated me. I said, give me permission. I'll capture it. So we drove up from our house up to Denison, Iowa, the fairgrounds, and there's a big drop-off where the Boyer River, I think, is there. We spent 4 hours. We lowered the bird up. I pounced on it, put it in a kennel, drove 4 hours, gave it to the circus. He cut his wings. The bird went right back on its perch and did its act and lived happily ever after. That's a children's book. It's pretty cheap. It's about like $6. The white peacock that ran away from the circus. You can follow me on our website, peafowl.com. My YouTube site is DMFet. You can email me at mrpeacock@peafowl.com and my phone number. You're welcome to contact me anytime now or in the future. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Order the Wacky World of Peafowl books at peafowl.com.